Shabbat Shalom. And God heard their cries. To me, this is one of the most profound statements in this week's Parshat Shemot. Cries are sadly what often bring a community together. Certainly in this week's Parsha, it is only when God hears the cries of the Hebrews did the Hebrews begin to form into a nation and begin their journey out of suffering towards healing. The tears, the wailing, the cries of a community, of our Jewish community, could be heard throughout our land earlier this week when the news of a plane crashed in Costa Rica. As people were ringing in the new year all over the world, tragedy struck a small plane where only 12 people were killed. And yet, it had a large ripple around the world with people's cries. The cries on the airplane, the cries of the family members who received the tragic call, the cries of the friends as the news began to spread, the cries of the community who lost dedicated people, the cries of our world which would have been so much better with them in it, but it will be built on their memories. Though Dave and I learned about the tragedy on Sunday night, by Monday morning, the stories started coming in. The connections within the Jewish community that the two Jewish families, the Steinbergs of Westchester and the Weisses of Florida, were tragically killed when a small plane crashed. Two complete families, both active in the Jewish community, were killed in a moment, and it will take weeks, months, years to make sense of this tragedy. It's something I will be thinking about and reflecting on, I'm sure now, and I'm sure in the coming months. But one of the most profound ideas that struck me through the tears was just how inextricably linked the Jewish people are. And it began with the cries in Egypt, and it continued today. You might think, who would know a family from St. Petersburg, Florida, here in New York? Well, let me tell you, I do. I know their rabbi. He's a distant cousin of mine. And I know their daughter, Hannah Weiss. Hannah was on the plane. She was a beautiful young woman, inside and out. She was not only a former USY leader of Dave's on the USY International Executive Board, sleeping at our house with 5 other teens a few years ago, not only a sophomore in the joint program between Lisk College and Columbia University, but most recently and most personally, our babysitter. She was here at Sutton Place Synagogue just 2.5 weeks ago with our kids. She brought the boys to the Purim Spiel rehearsal. As the news about the deaths emerged, Dave taught the following about Hannah. Hannah was an exceptional person. He wrote, I came to know her when she served as the USY Social Action and Tikkun Olam Vice President. We remained close after her time in office. So I want to remember 2 of Hannah's deeply held beliefs. The first was her commitment to saving our planet. Hannah was studying the science of sustainability at Columbia and Jewish studies at JTS. She was always modeling and inspiring others to care about our environment and to take responsibility as Jews and as human beings. The second is that Hannah believed in all of her friends, really anyone's capacity to do good. When Hannah was leading USY's Tikkun Olam efforts, she dedicated her platform to recognizing the efforts of others, highlighting different teens each month. Hannah knew it was one thing to do good, but that to make real change required empowering everyone to see their ability to take ownership and action. As we move forward through these days of sorrow, I want to think about what we can learn from our Parsha, so that like the Israelites, we can go from grief to healing. Now, in one sense, there's no sense to make in this. It is just awful, and there are no words. As our 9-year-old said when we told him, that's just so sad. And he couldn't find any other words, and we said, Zach, there are no other words. It is just so sad. But maybe, just maybe, it's the connectedness of our people, even through our cries, that can help. I often say that Genesis to Exodus is a transition of a family to a people. And the outpouring on Facebook to these two families show that we are part of a people. So many connections. I have come to learn that Hannah's mother was a pediatrician to friends of mine, that the family in Westchester were active members of a congregation where my friend is the rabbi, that there's cousins who belong to a synagogue in Westchester, that my friend's husband was the high school boyfriend of one of those who died on the plane, and so on. Matt Levin, a leader in the Federation movement, wrote, "I went to bed sad, but not knowing the depths of this hurt. I woke up to my social media being filled with heartfelt accounts from these kids' friends, community leaders, rabbis, and of course my own child's deep pain trying to make sense of this tragic loss. He and his friends spent the day counseling each other, here in South Florida, but connected through Facebook, Instagram, and social media to kids in Miami, Broward, Tampa, Palm Beach, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Atlanta. Hannah and Ari Weiss were Ramah Darom through and through. They spent summers learning, doing Ruach, learning Torah, celebrating friendships. There were balloon fights, young love, all of it. And USY gave them the opportunity to learn these leadership skills. Matt writes, mind you, I have never met either child or these parents, and yet I meet them every day. My son and his friends are Hannah and Ari are all of them. If one more person tells me how we are losing the fight on college campuses or young Jews don't care, Matt writes, I will be impolite. I will be harsh. There is an answer. Redouble our efforts to make sure that Hannah and Ari's short and brilliant lives as Jewish activists and leaders will serve as a reminder that the great Jewish experience is still going on, that we must invest in places like Ramah and USY, where our kids can grow and thrive, where we celebrate and support our kids on campus, where we make Jewish education possible for anyone who wants to go to a Jewish day school. As the week continued, tributes and responses continued to pour in. One of the most profound responses from the cries of our people, from our teens, was the following. Hannah's friends have organized a Mourners Kaddish chain to make sure that someone is saying Kaddish for these kids every day for 11 months, because halachically, there is no one to say Kaddish for them. If you commit to praying to Hannah, you are certainly welcome to sign up for that spreadsheet over the next 11 months. Email me and I'll send it to you. The Google Doc is filling up. Just as the Google Doc filled up quickly for our 40 days of fasting for our Torah last month, so too we are signing up to say Kaddish. I'd rather be signing up for fasting. This is something that no one should experience, and yet the response shows the depth of what it means to stand together, to rise together as part of the Jewish people. Rabbi Avi Olitsky shared this week, we began the new year with hope, but then tragedy strikes, and we're reminded again how fleeting each moment is, how small the world can be, and what Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Bazeh might really mean. Not that Jews are responsible for one another, but that our lives are uniquely intertwined, and that personal pain is shared and profound and raw. So how do we learn who these people were? How do we understand the importance of being connected through the generations? Like the name of our Parsha, Shmot, names, we must know the names. Bruce Steinberg, Irene Steinberg, Matthew, William, and Zachary Steinberg, Mitchell Weiss, Leslie Weiss, Hannah and Ari Weiss, Amanda Geisler, and Juan Manuel Ratana. Micah Cowan, a classmate and friend of Hannah's at Columbia and JTS, wrote the following, and I share this with you in conclusion for two reasons. The first is that we often learn as much from our friends as Micah did from Hannah. We often learn more from our students, as I am doing from Micah. And this is an articulation of wisdom that will help us not only on this Shabbat, but in Shabbatot to come. We've just entered the year 2018, 20 Chai. The word Chai denotes some connotation of life. In the Bible, the word Chai is still used to refer to life. Last week was Parshat Vayechi, the life of Jacob, or as Harold Alper reminded us several months ago, Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah. The end of Vayechi also ended the book of Breshit, and today we begin Shmot with our new characters and our new narrative. But Shmot, names, doesn't just simply start anew, it draws a connection to the past, to their story. Hannah lived 19 years, and boy did she inspire. But her story doesn't end here. Her drive and her care for others will continue just as we start the book of Shmot, celebrating the Chai that Hannah began. So as we together re-enter the story not of just the first Jewish family, but of the origin story of our Jewish people, let us commit to hearing one another's cries, to learning each other's names, and to live and support together. Shabbat Shalom.